crazy theory. Today, part 1 of the entire Angry Birds timeline. Well, not really, this is actually part 3, I think, but we're getting there. I hope we start on the actual timeline now, so that's good. And this is going to cover everything up until Angry Birds Space. Now, I will admit, in my previous video, I did kind of start going over the timeline a little bit. I mostly got up to the point where Professor Pig ends up making the Angry Birds experiments. And today I want to go a bit more in depth on that. Now, obviously, look at this. The first thing you'll notice is, well, you'll see the numbers. Probably wondering what those meant. Well, the truth is, I think that's the order in which they were created. First the Stella flock, then a beta version of our classic flock. And then obviously the classic flock. That felt weird. Anyway. How do we know the Stella flock was first? Well, if we know King Pig needs eggs, then eggs must come from female birds, right? Obviously, they're obviously mostly female because of the whole Angry Birds Stella is for girls thing, but we don't care about genders here. I mean, we do, but you know what I mean by that. We only care about lore. Why are these female? As many eggs as possible. Of course, there's one boy there, but so they're all sent to Golden Island, right? And King Pig knows that they're there, so he sends a bunch of pigs over to it. Because, we gotta conquer this, and this is where Angry Birds Stella takes place. We start with Gale finding the crown, turning evil, wanting golden eggs, and then the rest of the flock stops her. Okay. Now, one thing I did neglect to go over in my lore video is the golden eggs themselves. I neglected to say that well, here's what I think they are. I think that the golden eggs are remnants of the war. Literal eggs that turn golden. And the levels are so simple yet complicated because they remember how big and crazy the war was, but so long ago now they've forgotten. That's why golden egg levels make no sense. Now, obviously, next up, creation of the beta flock. Okay, this is kind of important later, but not really. Like I said, this flock is mostly just used as a basis for our classic flock. Now, why do I say that just these 6 are the experiments created? Where's Hal? Where's Bubbles? Well, I mean, look at the games they're in. Not only are they in all of the mainline classic games and stuff, but they're also at Big Island. So I messed myself up there. They're also in Angry Birds Epic, Angry Birds Pop, Angry Birds Fight, Angry Birds 2, and, importantly for today, Angry Birds Reloaded. Now, obviously not all these games are canon, but I think it's just going to show how important these 6 birds are. Oh yeah, enter the cast of Angry Birds tunes as well. Forgot to mention that. Yeah, I think that's ROVIO's trying to go, hey, these 6 are important. Pay attention to them. Also, I love how Stella was scrapped from Angry Birds tunes, and then ultimately made away with the experiments in Angry Birds Fight. Now, I don't think Fight is canon because we're mostly trying to make a timeline based off games that are going to be on the App Store and stuff. Now, obviously, ROVIO Classics was removed. I know that. But I don't want to make an entire new timeline. I think this is just a good time. Besides, they said they're not canceling anything classic or anything, so I think this is still pretty much canon as it is. Now, about Reloaded. This is the next game in the timeline. And for those of you who don't care about this game or the movies, I'll pretty much explain the plot. Now, as I say, this takes place here because Leonard is King Pig, and, well, we'll learn about Silver later. Basically, Matilda and Terrence have eggs, right? And then the pigs steal those eggs. Leads to another war. Which, during that war, Hal, Bubbles, and Silver are born. See, I told you they'd show up eventually. But then in the middle of all this, the Eagles attack. They kind of want to destroy stuff for some reason. So the birds with Silver and the pigs, for some reason, team up to stop them. And Mighty Eagle actually joins their team. And after all this is over, after all peace is made, because of course there is, I'm just getting more for peace, but not this kind. It's really too is trash. Red and Silver have eggs. And I know people are going to hate me for this, but when you actually look at the timeline, at the orders of events and stuff, this is probably the best you're going to get. Okay, because Hal and Bubbles can't exist, and Stella's doing her own thing, and anyway, when you actually look at the timeline, I mean, come on. Technically, they're not a thing yet, I mean, they are, but I don't necessarily think the gameplay is canon, only the cutscenes and stuff. So, Bubbles and Hal aren't there yet. Stella's not there yet. She's still with Angry Birds Stella right now. I know people are going to hate me for this, but Red and Silver are the ones who make the eggs. However, there is a happy ending for you crazy, insane Angry Birds fans out there. I mean, come on. King Pig gets hungry. Right, he gets, really hungry. He can't wait for those eggs any longer. Even though they were just created out of something. So, he decides to capture all of these. And maybe some other people. The rest of the flock keeps the Golden Island with Stella. And finally, our classic flock is born. And of course the pigs are still invading because they want to get those eggs. So, birds stop the pigs from taking Golden Island, and Angry Birds pop, and I know people are going to hate me for calling this canon, but like I said, it's on the App Store, so it's probably got to be some level of candidacy. I mean, it's a classic game, and, I mean, people wouldn't mind if it was removed. It's hated this much now. Anyway, the birds are eventually lured over to Piggy Island by King Pig, because he has a surprise for them. Cake! That's right. Next up is Angry Birds Go. Now, I've seen a lot of timelines before. This is kind of awkwardly placed there in most of them. Like, the way I've seen it, Angry Birds Go takes place sometime after classics.
Did you get my text?
I've seen it just awkwardly placed there in the timeline. And it doesn't really make much sense. Just like birds and pigs just decide to have a race for no reason. Why? That doesn't make any sense. But if it was to distract the birds or something, or at least we lure them over to get their eggs to Piggy Island, then I feel like that would make a lot of sense. Also, because I can't really think of anywhere else to place this game in the timeline. At least nowadays. So, during this, Bad Piggies occurs. Where Ross uses vehicles, presumably to disguise himself, and think he's at least part of or training for the race or something. But in reality, it's to steal their eggs. But the birds quickly find out about this, get really mad, and decide to destroy all of the piggies. In Angry Birds Classic, or ROVIO Classics, Angry Birds, or whatever you want to call it. And Seasons also takes place sometime around this. I believe Classics and Seasons happen around the same time, so, you know. And yeah, that's pretty much it so far. Next up will be Angry Birds Space and its timeline along with the Star Wars games, and yeah, that'll pretty much be that. So, thank you for watching. I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye!